Hello, everyone. Welcome to Queer Lawyers Speak, hosted by LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ plus bar association. My name is Adam Zebelian. I'm a partner at Schiller, DeCanto & Fleck, where I practice family law, and I'm also the current president of LAGBAC, Chicago's LGBTQ plus bar association. Today, we have a young leader in the legal profession, Kenny Matuszewski.
There you go.
I nailed it, sort of.
You got it.
He is the current president of the Young Lawyers section of the Chicago Bar Association. And I believe, are you the first openly LGBTQ individual to hold that position?
I think I am.
All right, very good. Well, beyond that introduction, Kenny, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure thing. So thank you so much for the kind introduction, Adam. So my name is Kenny Matuszewski, and I am a patent litigator at a firm called Rosie Yard McDonough. I practice a lot of software patent litigation, mechanical devices, and medical devices as well. So as Adam mentioned, I'm also the current chair of the Chicago Bar Association Young Lawyers section, where we serve the needs of lawyers that have been admitted to the practice of law and law students for up to their first 10 years of admission. So you have a diverse group of people with a lot of needs who come from a lot of places, all sorts of backgrounds. But it's something that I find it's been very rewarding. It's been something where I've grown as a person. I've made lots of friends. I've had colleagues. Heck, even the real estate attorney that I bought my condo from is a past YLS chair. So, I mean...
Oh, no kidding. It's great networking.
I love it.
So what is the Young Lawyers section of the Chicago Bar Association?
Yeah, so basically, as I had mentioned earlier, it's for lawyers within their first 10 years of practice and law students. And basically, it's a way for people to just kind of like bring questions. Like, I would say that we have a bunch of pillars where it focuses on basically helping attorneys in their first few years of practice really become better professionally, substantively through CLE programming, like networking opportunities so they can meet people not only in their own practice areas but across others, which, as I indicated not too long ago, is very helpful for plenty of personal and professional reasons. You also have plenty of social opportunities. We've had a lot of people that come to Chicago that are not from around the Chicagoland area. I grew up in the suburbs, so I already knew plenty of people, but you're able to meet so many others, which is great. But more importantly, you're able to better the profession. So over the years, I've been lucky enough to be able to participate in and help out with like racial justice initiatives with the Chicago Bar Young Lawyer section. I'm working on anti-bullying resolutions now, and just initiatives after the Illinois Supreme Court released this. It's a landmark study. It's like, I'm sure it's the only state in the country so far that has released such like an extensive scope of studying thousands of professionals and their experiences of being bullied in the workplace, and even people who might have had bullying tendencies and behaviors. So I would say it's something that's allowed me to really, it's a great life of service. It kind of helps me remember like, oh yeah, this is like some of the really good stuff that it's not only fun, but it allows me to think like, kind of helps me feel like when I was sworn back in at first, like it's a privilege to help.
And because of the size of the Chicago Bar Association, which is one of the largest urban bar associations in the nation, it really allows the young lawyers to have an impact and have more of a group within the bar. So that is great that you're leading it and get to experience so many good networking opportunities plus community initiatives that you were just talking about.
Thank you. I will also have to jump in and just give credit to, luckily, since Chicago Bar, we are one of the largest urban bar associations. I think we have close to 20,000 members. Plus, the Young Lawyers section itself has pretty much a little bit over 7,000, which is a lot of people. I mean, I'm trying to think if I even know that many people. But maybe.
7,000 people is a lot. That's more people than the town I grew up in.
But I would say otherwise, but it's all thanks to, we have some great staff. Like, I have to give shout outs. Like, we have not only our executive director, Beth McMean, we have Emily Anderson, who's the director of the Young Lawyers section. It's been very helpful. Like, we have so many professionals and attorneys and people that really, they work for the CBA that it's a lot of what makes it possible to help execute. So I'm very grateful for them, in addition to all my fellow volunteers and everything.
So last year was the Chicago Bar Association's 150th anniversary.
As you can see with this top pin right here.
Oh, yeah, you got the pin on.
Oh, yeah.
So this year, obviously, is the 151st year. Last year was Ray Koenig's year as president, and he was the first openly LGBTQ plus individual to hold that position. And you, in the 151st year, are the first individual from our community, openly LGBTQ plus, to hold the position of YLS chair. And in addition to that, your first vice chair, who will be chair of the Young Lawyers section next year, is also openly LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
So
pretty awesome, isn't
that's pretty phenomenal. How long have you been a lawyer, Kenny?
About 8 years. So 8 years. Actually, 8 years on the dot. Almost.
Okay. So on the show, we have typically had more of the elder members of our more distinguished, not distinguished, I shouldn't say that, more
the young at heart, I would calling
experienced members of our community who also happen to be lawyers or judges, and you're one of the more younger ones on the show. In the 8 years that you've been practicing law, have you seen a shift in how comfortable our community members are here in Chicago being who they are?
I 100% think it's been a market shift. It's been, I would almost say, like a watershed moment, just in terms of the number of people that I see out and about, like just other bar association events coming, like bring, like mentioning like their partners, husbands, their wives. But I would say probably even more so, 8 years ago, we have not had any of the discussions about, say, like transgender or gender nonconforming or non-binary people that, frankly, we have a lot now. Like, it's been something where I've been seeing a lot of people, like, who really are expressive in being who they are, like people who use they, them pronouns and who are being respected for it, and people who consistently use it. I've seen people that dress like however they want. I've seen a lot more vibrant colors. You don't see as much. We're both wearing purple, so which is good. But you used to see a lot how, unofficial dress codes, like ties have to be like red or blue, or you have these very limited color palette. And I think it's something which, since then, like in the 8 years I've been practicing, that was started about a year after Obergefell was decided.
And now Obergefell, was the landmark case that the United States Supreme Court handed down, legalizing gay marriage here in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And that was in 2015,
right?
Which was shortly after you became a lawyer, or before?
Right before, yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting to say that you're seeing among the younger lawyers not only embracing who they are,
right,
but embracing as openly LGBTQ plus individuals, but also embracing their total person by even dressing more in conformity with who they are. Is that true?
That's very true. I mean, and what's even more interesting, so I went to a local law school, like here in Chicago, Kent. Like, I was a 1L, actually, so back in 2013 when Illinois first legalized gay marriage. So that was actually, so it's kind of interesting where, you start seeing like, okay, Illinois legalized it nationwide, and, just to where we are now. It's refreshing, it's great, it's something that I'm really glad to just kind of see, like, just you're seeing people just be more talking about this type of stuff more often, which is excellent.
It's refreshing to also know that the gender nonconforming individuals in our community are feeling more comfortable in the legal profession, which tends to be more conservative, being who they are. You mentioned they, them pronouns. For individuals that are watching now, what does that exactly mean if people don't know?
So, that's a very good question. I would say, I took all of one gender studies class in college, so I know there are plenty of people that could do this better than I can, but I would say basically, so we have generally a binary. So like people think like, okay, he and him, like, so like you think like, you're like generally is a male identity. So maybe it's hard to describe because I've always, it's like one of those things like you don't have to think about it. Like you realize, I'm a man. I've always felt like a man. Like the other opposite, on the other side, you have like she, her, like women. So people who identify as women and use those pronouns. Now, people that identify as they, them do not necessarily feel they may be either completely outside that spectrum of, say, for example, they may be a third thing entirely, completely outside male or female. they may see it as a spectrum or a gradient where you might relate as like one end of a gender identity or another on some days, maybe some months, some years. So it's very interesting because I would say it's almost like an umbrella term. So people that I think, that they feel like that they're not part of like the binary in some way. So,
and that's why they refer to themselves in our community as non-binary.
Right.
And they go by they, them pronouns.
Exactly.
And that was, by the way, a very good description. And so thank you for that. But it's also, again, refreshing that the gender nonconforming individuals, again, the non-binary individuals and the transgender individuals in our legal community are able to come to events at the Chicago Bar Association or, of course, LAGBAC or any other bar association and be who they are.
We even have gender nonconforming and transgender judges right now. So
yes,
openly transgender that is.
Yes, Judge Jill Rose Quinn, who will be on the show in the future.
Oh, I actually interviewed her for a blog article I wrote not too long, like about a few years ago, actually back for the CBA's blog. So
yeah, she's amazing, a real trailblazer, and we're proud of her to not only be on the judiciary but also to serve on the LAGBAC board.
Yeah.
All right, Kenny. So you said that you went to Kent here in Chicago. Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to Notre Dame. So.
Okay. So I always say that there's the fans that I dislike the most are Notre Dame fans and Michigan fans. But I went to Michigan.
No, hey, we overlap with Michigan. So
okay, all right. Hey, you admit it.
I know.
Okay, so you're a Big Ten guy. And so outside of Chicago and Indiana, have you lived anywhere else?
Yeah, I lived in D.C. for a little while. So when I was 1L, so my 1L summer,
what is a 1L? Because not everyone watching may be familiar.
So a 1L is you're a first-year law student, basically. So it's abbreviated as 1L just for ease of access and everything. So after my first year of law school, I worked in D.C. at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, where I was helping with like a lot of like patent appeals regarding certain rejections and administrative cases. I was working with administrative patent judges, which was really cool. I was able to help ghostwrite opinions and everything. But more so, it was just fun, getting a chance to live on the East Coast, get a sense of what life is like. I mean,
D.C. is much different than Chicago.
It is.
And people are shocked to find this out when they move there, that it's smaller. Mm-hmm. It's a smaller community, but it has a vibrant LGBTQ plus community. Yeah. Now, how long were you in D.C. for?
About 2-3 months. So right in the height of summer, though. So
Okay. So what drew you back to Chicago then?
Well, the externship ended. I had to go back to school and everything. So, but I've kind of realized Chicago just felt more like home to me in some ways. And I think about it for a couple ways. I mean, at the time when I was in D.C., it was the metro system closed at 1 a.m. So if you were just having fun or something and you were going out, it'd be and it was 1 a.m. Well, tough. Well, Ubers weren't really a thing then. So it'd be okay, well, gotta find a cab or just walk it on back. So you better hope for that. But something I found was that what I appreciated about Chicago, when I call it home in more than one way. It's not just where I grew up. It's not just where I live now. But people are nicer. People are kind. People. And the whole stereotype of DC is true, in terms of, who do you work for, what do you do, are the first questions. But something that I realized when I was back in Chicago was that every single time I'd be on the metro or be out in a grocery store, I would see people generally you wouldn't see people with who would dye their hair say certain colors or alternative colors like blue or green or pink or something. You would see a lot of people that kept their sort of more natural hair color, the browns and the blondes and stuff. And it was just something which, I kind of realized I appreciated that Chicago is a city that allows for that. So, there's a greater degree, I think, of self-expression, or that people feel more comfortable, being able to express themselves than probably others. I know in D.C. it can be very small c conservative in terms of how, and by that, it's okay, very much okay. There's certain expectations for how you look, how you dress, especially if you're in certain lines of work like politics.
Which is the industry in D.C. It's politics. And there's a lot of politics in Chicago, too.
Oh, yeah, of course there are. That's a story for another day.
Yes, exactly. So you've been a patent lawyer your entire career.
Yep, that's right.
And what does that actually mean for audience members that are watching
Sure.
that aren't familiar with patent law?
Yeah, so patents, there's a couple. I like to kind of break it down in terms of, so it's basically about the protection of inventions, like can be like about new discoveries, and basically it's just really crediting innovation and promoting it. So if you come up with something that's really new, brilliant, then you should be rewarded for it. And there's like basically kind of two prongs of it. So the first is that you can help get a patent for somebody. So you go back and forth with the USPTO being like, oh, somebody want to be like, oh, I want a patent for like a flying car because like, and they want the patent because it's exclusively theirs. They developed it first. They think, it's for this brief period of time, like I have exclusivity in the marketplace and, I want to be compensated for it. And so like nobody else can copy it. So you get the patent, and then what I do a lot now, I did that for about a year and a half. What I do now is a lot more on the enforcement side, so a lot with patent litigation. So I've done a mixture of like plaintiff side, so if clients have patents and they feel like competitors have copied their inventions, like I can help sue them for that and just make sure that they're compensated fairly, that their rights are protected. Or I've defended companies accused of patent infringement where it's like, okay, let's take a look at this. Like everybody deserves a fair defense, but more so sometimes it's like, okay, well, do these patents actually cover like these products and everything that we're selling? Like these companies have put in a lot of time and effort to develop their own, and if they don't infringe, well, it's not fair to just be like, well, okay, you have to stop or you have to pay us a certain amount. So I've always been drawn to it, and I think one reason why I like it a lot is because I've always been very curious about how the world works. And like reading patents and like figuring that out kind of it's a great way for me to do that.
So to practice patent law, you have to be a member of the patent bar.
Yeah, I would say in general.
So I am a member of the Illinois State Bar, as are you.
Of course.
But you're also a member of the patent bar, which is a whole separate exam and qualification process.
Right. It's a whole separate exam, as you were right. So the state bar is like...
But you can't even take the exam unless you have a certain credential.
Right.
Or you have to have a certain bachelor's degree, right?
Yeah,
Something
so usually I would say like science or engineering is like usually like a prerequisite. Like sometimes there's some like exceptions where, you have certain coursework or something like enough credit hours. But yeah, I'd say the default is a bachelor. And it's a pretty difficult test. Like on average, about less than 50% of people pass per year. So it's just, even though it's like multiple choice, it's funny because unlike say the state bar exam where, that was just pure cramming memorization and for a few months, this was an open book test. But unlike, you can't just control F your way through it. You have to know how to use it, like where the information is, because they tab it, so it's like, you have an open book, but this open book is kind of outdated in some ways. So it's up to you to figure out what's actually true and how to figure out how to use it. So it's very interesting, kind of.
Interesting is an interesting way to put it. It sounds difficult, but so what has been?
It could be both.
True. What's been your most favorite part of being the YLS chair for the CBA?
Wow, that's a tough one. I would say, there's been so much that's been great. There's been a lot of good people. There's been a lot of, it's been interesting, really. So, there's a couple things, though. Like, I can say, first of all, back in November, almost 8 years ago to the day, back in November, there was a swearing-in ceremony for all the new lawyers. And at that swearing-in ceremony, we had the Chicago Bar Association president at the time, Dan Cotenlake, actually speak. And that was something which I thought that was pretty cool. Coming to address us, give some comments, all that stuff. And 8 years ago, fast forward 8 years, I was the one that was asked to do it. And it was very meaningful. It was something this is a very full circle thing for me. At the time, I was still very unsure of myself, trying to figure out who I was, figure out, what I wanted to do, in some ways even, really still trying to find a post-law school job. It was something, this is something that I realized, this is of a lot of importance. It's something I want to make sure I can really instill, good words with people. But it's been realizing that a lot of people I've had people tell me I'm a role model. I've had people tell me I've been doing, there's just been lots of opportunities for me to, make change and just even have important conversations around bullying or talk about certain things. I would just say it's been an incredible year. There's been so much. It's been so great. I could talk about it for a long time.
So you've brought up bullying a couple times. Now, there has been this initiative led by the Illinois Supreme Court and their professionalism committee to do research into do lawyers feel bullied? And they've released a bunch of research that I think was facilitated by the CBA. Is that right?
Right.
And about how lawyers feel about other lawyers or judges treating them in a certain way, and if it rises to the level of bullying. That seems to be an ongoing conversation, which I think is important.
It is.
An important conversation. Is the YLS doing anything with that?
We are actually. So right now we're actually working with the Commission on Professionalism we're not only working with them and the ISBA for a program sometime late in 2025. Be on the lookout for that. It'll be exciting.
Okay.
We're also working with the Commission on Professionalism and the ABA to actually we're drafting a resolution such that it would become, official policy of the American Bar Association, which it's in terms of we recommend other states, you should be working on adopting studies like we have in Illinois. Figure out what is bullying conduct, find ways for reporting or making sure holding people accountable or implementing certain mental health and wellness initiatives, because let's face it, people just don't wake up thinking, I want to be a bully, I'm going to do this. People have a lot of stress. There's a lot of things that go on in the background, and that
especially in litigation,
right?
And there's pressure to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, we'll keep a lookout for that. So as we near our end here, like every guest we have on the show, what's your coming out story?
It's interesting. So I would say, at first, I started off was thinking I'll go to the, join my law schools, we called it Lavender or something. I know it's outlaws for most other schools. And, I went to the first meeting, and I think...
Right, so the LGBTQ plus group at Kent.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, at one point, there was a couple of people, I think, there's I was just starting to find myself, and people would be oh, Kenny, you were there. Oh, I didn't know you were. I was oh my God, I did. I feel I'm not quite ready. This is wild.
So you went as an ally, but not.
Well, no, I was, but it was I think I was dipping my toes. It was yeah. I didn't say no, I wasn't. But I think over time, as the years went on, I'm you know what? I just kind of realized it's just easier to be me. So it's with new people, it's you're just okay. Fine, I'm just going to live my life how it is. Let people think what they may, let them kind of figure it out. Or it's but it's just I've always introduced myself as that. I've been more involved with, say, sports leagues. I've been doing a lot more, going out and about and stuff. I've marched in Pride and everything. And it's something where, yeah, it's just it's just who I am. And there's been a few people, it always lags and everything. Because, let's face it, coming out's not just, a one-time thing. You're going to be doing it for the rest of your life. For some of those people who don't know, well, now you do.
All right. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your year as YLS chair, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome.
Nice
Thank
to
you,
see
Adam. It's a pleasure. Good to see you as always. Thank you.
All right. And thank you for all tuning in today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much.
See you later.